The introduction of the new raid armor modifiers has really spiced up raid activities in Destiny 2, but I wanted to test out one of the lesser used raiding subclasses, the Voidwalker Warlock, in the Leviathan Raid in conjunction with these new modifiers to see how exactly it performed. What is up, guys? Calus here, and yes, we took 6 Voidwalker Warlocks, the full team, into the Leviathan Raid with a smorgasbord of new raid perks to test out how powerful this subclass could be, if it was really a viable option to run, especially to run over some of the most popular subclasses for raiding. And so, let's get started here by discussing the build. So in terms of the Voidwalker itself, firstly, for the grenade, we are using Vortex Grenade. The initial damage followed by damage over time is great for overall DPS. Now in terms of what tree we're picking, what attunement we went with, the bottom one is the choice we made, simply because the Devour perk is extremely useful, being able to get a melee kill and then have a 10-second window where any other kill is going to fully heal you. Incredibly useful. And then you also have the ability for your Nova Bomb to be much more accurate and fast moving, so it's going to let you get that damage on bosses right away, and also it will provide a damage over time as well, so that is also going to help with DPS. Now in terms of the raid modifiers, firstly, we're using the helmet with the ability to regenerate your Void Grenade when you utilize your super. Now with a Devour Warlock, this is going to let you throw a Vortex Grenade, immediately use your super, which happens very fast, and then throw another Vortex Grenade in the matter of just a couple of seconds, and that overall DPS is phenomenal. In addition to that, we're also using Raid Gauntlets. This gives us access to the Raid modifier that lets us melee kill an enemy and gain a 20% damage bonus for 10 seconds. Obviously insane when you're trying to increase your damage output. And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we're using a Raid class item. This grants us 25% more damage with Void abilities. Now with all of this combined, what do we get? Well, starting out here we have the Castellum, the opening encounter. And here, the Voidwalker Warlock is very good. The star is definitely Devour, being able to get a melee kill, which is relatively easy considering how many red health legionaries there are. Just getting that melee kill and then consistently getting kill after kill and getting your health back every single time. There are so many enemies in this opening encounter that it's actually hard to go 10 seconds without getting a kill. And by the time you do, maybe you've killed for a minute straight getting your health back, and finally you miss out on that 10-second window. Well, your melee is pretty much always recharged and you can just start it again. This is actually super useful if you're a defender. Simply because of the sheer amount of enemies, the increased survivability is fantastic. Now as for the Nova Bomb itself, well, I mean, it's certainly not bad. You get to kill the first Reclaimer you see and all of his friends around him very easily. But let's be frank here, it's probably not going to be as good as the roaming super, for one of the roaming supers for the Warlock. I'm thinking the Stormcaller Warlock. That's also going to get the 25% damage bonus. You can also get a melee kill to increase that, and that's just going to wipe the floor with enemies. So Devour is definitely really good, but when we're talking about supers, there are better options. However, Nova Bomb is certainly not bad. Overall, I would say that Voidwalker in the Castellum is a 7 out of 10. But moving on from there, we have the Pleasure Gardens, and this is the first real test of DPS. Can a Nova Bomb and some grenades kill a dog outright without ever having to shoot your gun? Well, let's find out. Now something important to note, we made sure to only get 24 stacks of spores. Firstly, this makes it a much more realistic damage test. If you get 100 spores, you can kill these things with anything. And secondly, this means that this will be viable for any challenge modes. For those of you who don't know, getting 24 spores and then nuking your dogs is the most used strategy for the challenge mode. So, how did Nova Bombs perform? Well, you'll see that the first thing I do is utilize my Empowering Rift to maximize damage output. Then I kind of wait around a bit and I'm waiting for the normal War Beast to spawn so that I can get that melee kill and get that 20% damage bonus. Once I finally do, I utilize a grenade, I utilize my Nova Bomb, and then that second grenade that I just gained for the raid modifier, and as you can see, I've killed this War Beast with only 24 stacks without firing a single shot. No rockets, no nothing, just grenades and my Nova Bomb. And guys, that's pretty darn impressive. This is actually a really viable option because it means that if you're getting screwed on rocket launcher ammo, you don't have to worry, your abilities will cover you, and you have a backup for your rocket launcher or your merciless or whatever power weapon you're running. You can whip that out if you need it, but for most people, they aren't even gonna need it. So Nova Bombs in the Pleasure Gardens? Well, 10 out of 10. It does exactly what you want it to do. Now moving on from there, we have the Royal Pools encounter. The first section of this encounter is holding open your plate while being bombarded by enemies. Now, Nova Bomb against the Bathers is predictably amazing, but you don't really want to be utilizing your super on these enemies. Thankfully, your Vortex Grenades are fantastic. You can throw them at the Bathers when they're spawning, and it will continuously damage them for that whole animation of them coming out of the water or goop or whatever it is, and just by the time they actually jump out and land, they're nearly dead. You can finish them off with pretty much anything. As for everything else, you can go off your plate just for a little bit, melee a Scion, get Devour, and just be keeping up that Devour bonus pretty consistently. Devour is actually really good in this encounter because if you don't have that psionic protection buff, for whatever reason, perhaps there had to be a revive and some teammates were late getting to you, Devour is going to keep you alive way longer than you're supposed to be alive standing in the water. But we also have the second section of this encounter, which is damaging the Purple Lanterns. And Nova Bomb here is actually pretty decent / not so good. Weird to explain, but as you can see, the first Nova Bombs went off, like I used mine, and we took down 2 lanterns almost instantaneously, which is fantastic. I mean, that would point towards Nova Bomb being very good. However, some of our teammates reported that their Nova Bombs seemingly didn't do much, and then of course we had to switch to guns, having kind of blown our load, so to speak, for Nova Bombs right away, and it didn't seem great in certain positions. A lot of people felt like perhaps in using the Nova Bomb and jumping or just moving slightly to the side, they would lose the buff that allows them to do damage from that middle plate onto the lanterns, and so that is something you should be aware of. However, it did cause us to go to a second phase. In this second phase though, we all used Nova Bombs again and took down all 3 lanterns instantaneously. Again, a point for Nova Bombs. So I think there just might be some either bad communication or just some overzealous jumping or something like that that's causing certain Nova Bombs to not be as impactful as they should be, but overall Nova Bombs were looking pretty good. The best part about Nova Bomb is that it takes no time. You utilize your Nova Bomb, it's over in seconds, and then you can just go back to shooting the lanterns with a gun like you normally would. But you also have that hugely damaging option of your Nova Bomb in your repertoire. Voidwalkers in Royal Pools, I'm gonna say an 8 out of 10. Now moving on from there, we have the next encounter with the Gauntlet Encounter. The first section is killing enemies, and here, Voidwalker, fantastic. So the Vortex Grenades are absolutely amazing when enemies are spawning out of small doorways. Throw one, you're gonna kill everyone. In addition to that, Devour is predictably amazing, but especially here, there are some times where you have especially new players that you may be trying to guide through that can somewhat get overwhelmed, especially if they're at a quarter of the map by themselves. There's just a lot of enemies that spawn, and it's easy to let them kind of slip away from you, especially if you aren't paying attention. But one melee on a Scion and you're good to go for pretty much the rest of the encounter. The enemies spawn with the regularity that, again, it's almost impossible to go 10 seconds without killing something. And when the big yellow health Centurions spawn, you just Nova Bomb them, and it kills them with a single Nova Bomb. So it actually works out perfectly for this encounter. However, as for running, let's not beat around the bush. Warlock is the last thing you want to use to run the Gauntlet. The gliding is super annoying. God forbid you miss a jump and you will slowly float to your death while questioning every life decision you've ever made. It's infuriating. Definitely something like Titan or Hunter is gonna just be easier for this. Now, of course, you can certainly get used to the Warlock and it's not like that much harder than anything else, but again, it's certainly not the best. And therefore, the Voidwalker Warlock gets an 8.5 out of 10 for the Gauntlet Encounter. But moving on from there, we have the final encounter against, you guessed it, Big Daddy Calus. How does the Voidwalker perform here? This is really the main test. Well, this encounter is broken up into several different sections. The first one is just going to be fighting in the throne room. Now in this section, as you can imagine, having an ability that heals you consistently for just getting a kill within a 10-second window is phenomenally good. Like, is absolutely fantastic for this encounter, especially if you're doing the method of 2 people stay inside in the throne room and 4 people go outside to shoot skulls, which is the most common method if you're trying to one-phase Calus. Those 2 people in the throne room, like, that's no joke. You can easily get overwhelmed with a ton of enemies. Having Devour is so useful, and your Nova Bombs are often going to kill the yellow health Centurions and anyone within a mile radius of them when you use them, so it's also quite useful there. Now, as for inside Big Head, here, the Voidwalker doesn't look that impressive. Your subclass has pretty much no effect on killing the Scions, and then when it comes to killing the Skulls, Empowering Rift will definitely help you do that, but Arc Souls provided by the Stormcaller subclass are going to be way more useful. You get the utility of the Empowering Rift, and you get a little auto-aiming buddy that will also shoot at skulls. So definitely that Rift is superior to your Voidwalker Rift. Now, moving on, we have the real damage test against Calus. Now, there's a few things you have to do to set up your maximum DPS, and my whole team was doing that. So firstly, someone's got to pop an Empowered Rift. After that, you want to make sure to melee something. Luckily, there's a bunch of war beasts that swarm around whatever plate you want to go to, so it's actually pretty easy to enable that. Now, I'm kind of a dingus here, and you'll see me throw my grenade and kind of waste that, but then you're going to want to hop onto the plate with the damage bonus you gain from the melee, throw a nade, use your Nova, throw a nade, and as you can see, with just Nova Bombs, we absolutely tore through Calus's health to less than a third almost instantly. Now, my team was using some primaries and maybe 1 or 2 rockets were used, but this is by far mostly Nova Bomb and nades. That's really it, and we got Calus to below half health in a single plate. That's phenomenal. In fact, you'll see, like me, I'm just watching this all unfold. That's how much damage we're able to do. In fact, the actual damage number, I got 248,000, so nearly 250 damage just for hitting Calus with my Nova Bomb. That's not counting the damage over time my Nova Bomb is also inflicting. To put that in perspective, you're getting almost 60,000 damage for a direct impact of a rocket on Calus. So you're basically doing 4 rockets worth of damage with 1 Nova Bomb. Well, that's pretty darn good. And of course, with just how much damage we were able to deal on that first plate, we easily finished Calus off in the next 2 plates. I don't think we were even trying, but yep, we did it. And therefore, we have a lot to assess. So how is Nova Bomb against this Calus encounter? Well, certainly, I was really impressed by just how much damage it did to Calus. You've got to think of the versatility that this brings. Doing 4 rockets worth of damage with a super. Now yes, Golden Gun is a little bit more great at just damaging Calus, but Golden Gun is pretty much only great at damaging Calus. You aren't really getting the utility out of Golden Gun when you're in the throne room, you aren't getting Empowering Rifts when you're playing a Gunslinger Hunter, and you're certainly not getting Devour, which is very, very good in the throne room again. So in this throne room encounter, I've got to give the Voidwalker Warlock a 9 out of 10. Extremely good. There are 10 out of 10 subclasses out there for DPS, but the Voidwalker Warlock is really, really good. And I think that it really does benefit from these raid perks. Being able to melee one of those war beasts super easily, you get that 25% void abilities bonus, and just being able to go nade, nova, nade so quickly, like in just a few seconds. Then you've also got all of your rockets. You can take Calus down to nearly half health or beyond with just novas, and you've got 5 to 6 rockets ready to blast the crap out of him for the remaining half. And therefore, I think the Voidwalker Warlock is definitely a viable subclass to run in the Leviathan Raid. In fact, I would highly recommend it. From my experience, and I didn't really expect how good it would be, I'm going to be running this thing a lot more. When I was playing Warlock, I was pretty much exclusively running Stormcaller for the pulse grenades, but seeing how much damage Nova Bomb does, and the fact that with your Stormcaller Warlock, you're not damaging Calus at all with your super, I don't see any reason to use that over Voidwalker now. Of course, we do have Dawnblade, but that's another test for another time. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. Now, if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.